Okay, so Boricua Finance Nation is back. Like always, I want to salute my people from Rico, my people from Chicago, and the United States. I say, ho, the greatest nation in the world. Hoorah! Okay, so let's start with this. I got a couple of how do you call it? A couple of topics they want to talk about. I want to talk about the Ottoman Empire wannabe, the Turkish country that with their new leader, dictator, they want to lecture other countries. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the real empire once again, the Roman Empire. Okay, so we're going to start with that. Okay, let's get into it. We're gonna go right to it. I'm gonna show you. Start with I told you before, the Roman Empire wannabe, the Ottoman Empire wannabe. That's the Erdogan guy who thinks that the world is his. We're going to be talking about Azerbaijan and Armenia and the war there. Let's start with this article. Says right over here. Says Erdogan Jerusalem is our city, a city from us. Erdogan refer to the Ottoman Empire's rule over Jerusalem, which lasted 4 centuries, from 1517 to 1917. Okay, to justify his claim. Yeah, right. This guy's a clown, man. I'm telling you, he's a clown. Let's get over here. Open it up. I want to talk to you about that. And I will go back to this guy. He wants to lecture Israel. This guy, his country, not him, his country. His country has done some pretty ugly things. Let's start with this.
2015 promises to be a productive year toward peace between Armenia and Turkey, according to many news agencies. Last year, the Prime Minister of Turkey spoke of the shared pain between the two countries and expressed his condolences toward those affected by Turkish violence. This was considered the most conciliatory remark toward Armenia to date. So what is at the heart of the tension between Turkey and Armenia? Do they hate each other? And could there ever be reconciliation? Well, Turkey and Armenia have been longtime enemies. Back in the days of the Ottoman Empire, before World War I, Sultan Abdul Hamid II infamously oppressed the Armenian people. Armenians were often singled out for being Christian, while most of Turkey was Muslim. In the late 1800s, tens of thousands of Armenians were put to death under suspicions that they would side with Turkey's enemy at the time, Russia, during the Russo-Turkish War. Then, during World War I, rising tensions and historical persecutions led to the massacre of about 1.5 million Armenians. It's controversially known as the Armenian Genocide. Although more than 20 nations officially acknowledge the genocide, the Turkish government has instead implied that the Armenians were simply casualties of war. In fact, Article 301 of the Turkish Penal Code prosecutes journalists who denigrate the Turkish nation by implying the Armenian genocide is real. The press in Turkey has harsh restrictions on freedom of speech, although hate speech against Armenians is common. This refusal to acknowledge the genocide lies at the heart of the tension between Turkey and Armenia. The subject of Armenian genocide remains a sensitive subject for Armenian and Turkish politicians, as well as other international officials. To avoid alienating Turkey, a powerful NATO ally with the United States, President Obama has consistently refused to use the word genocide in his speeches on the subject. Obama and many other nations continue to tread lightly while encouraging Turkish acknowledgement and reckoning of the past. This year will mark the 100th anniversary of the genocide, and many Armenians are hoping for an official government apology. Last year, the Armenian president declared that it was the utter denial of the crime, which was keeping the issue alive between the nations. It's clear that until they both can come to an agreement on what exactly happened, reconciliation is unlikely. As you may know, our brand new channel Seeker is underway, and I really recommend this awesome show called...
Okay, so you just heard the genocide from Turkey to Armenia. Okay, Armenia. Okay, so when was the last time Israel killed more than 1 million people? You can count all the death in all the wars between Israel and the Arabs. You can count all the death of the Arabs, and it won't get even to 500,000, even to 500,000. And this guy right here has killed 1 million. His people killed 1 million, more than 1 million Armenians, and that's just from a country, because this was an empire. So as an empire, so you're gonna keep building your empire and getting more land. So you gotta keep killing people. Israel was never an empire. Israel has always lived in their land, the land that God gave to them. Okay, and they could have invaded other countries, but they have not done it. They just want their land. Okay, the land of Israel. That's the only land they have invaded, parts of it. Why? Because they have been attacked. Because they have been attacked. They could have kept the Sinai Peninsula. They didn't. They could have kept the what they call Judea and Samaria, Samaria. That is Israel territory. Okay. These people call it. They have another name for it. I don't remember it right now. But Israel could have keep the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount. They could have keep the Sinai Peninsula. They could have even invaded more land in Egypt in the 1973 war, the Yom Kippur War. Even Syria. They didn't do it because of the pressure of the world against Israel. And Israel wants peace. They give land back for peace. They give the land back for peace. This guy wants to lecture Israel, and this guy wants to come to Israel and tell and say that Israel is a genocidal country against the Palestinian people. This clown right here, this is a clown. And Barack Obama is another clown. He's a weak guy. He's weak. It didn't go against this guy. This guy, he thinks he's the big thing. He's nothing. He's nothing. Let's keep on. Let me read something else to you, because there's a war going on right now in Armenia. We're going to talk about this first. First Turkish invasion, July 1974. Turkish invaded Cyprus on Saturday, 20 July 1974. Heavily armed troops landed shortly before dawn at Kyrenia Gim on the northern coast, meeting resistance from Greek and Greek Cypriot forces. Ankara said that it was invoking its right under the Treaty of Guarantee to protect the Turkish Cypriots and guarantee the independence of Cyprus. By the time the UN Security Council was able to obtain a ceasefire on the 22nd of July, the Turkish forces were in command of a narrow path between Kyrenia and Nicosia, 3% of the territory of Cyprus, which they succeeded in widening. They succeeded in widening. They got more land. Violating the ceasefire demanded in Resolution 353. Okay, let's keep going. The Turkish force, this is the second Turkish invasion of Cyprus. The Turkish forces minister Turan Guinness has said to the Prime Minister Bülent Ecevit, when I say I see should go on vacation Turkey, I see Talib Cyprus. These names are so hard to count, man. It will mean that our armed forces are ready to go into action, even if the telephone line is tapped. That would rouse no suspicions. An hour and a half after the conference broke up, Turan Guri called Ecevit and said that the code phrase on 14th of August, Turkey launched its second peace operation, which eventually resulted in the Turkish occupation of 37% of Cyprus. British then Foreign Secretary, later Prime Minister James Callaghan, later disclosed that U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, another coward, vetoed at least one British military action to preempt the Turkish landing. Turkish occupation reached as far south as the Lorigina salient. Okay, so let's go over here. Let's see all the land that these people are occupying in Cyprus. Take a look at this. All of this is occupied today, not years ago, today, by the Turkish Ottoman Empire wannabe. Today, so they're talking about Israel. This is almost half of the land of Cyprus, almost half of it. And why the United Kingdom wanted to stop them? Because they got big bases here. Here's a base. Imagine how big this base is, and another base down here. Take a look at this base. Take a look at this one. Another base right here. And the Do Nothing United Nations, the Do Nothing United Nations are right here. This line, this blue line. Buffer zone. The United Nations buffer zone. What are they doing there? They're doing this. What are these people doing there? What are these people doing? They don't do nothing. The United Nations is worthless. It's good for nothing. I'm telling you, it is good for nothing. The United Nations. Okay, so let's talk about another thing right now. Let's talk about another thing that is going on today. Okay, so the Armenians are fighting Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan is an ally of Israel. So Israel they have Israel weapons. Now you people might say, this guy is a hypocrite. He's talking about Turkey attacking, and today Turkey is attacking Armenia as well. They're sending Syrian terrorists to attack Armenia. Syrians that work for the Turkish government. So it's not only Azerbaijan, okay? Because this is a war between Azerbaijan and Armenia that is a pretty fair war, to say the least, okay? But when you talk about a power like Turkey, because Turkey is a big country, you know, and they got a big military. It is a pretty big and strong military. It's pretty big in Asia or Europe, however you want to call it. Okay, so Israel is selling weapons to Azerbaijan. Why? Why? I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to show you why. Let's go back over here. Let's see if I have. Let's go back. Let's take a look at this. If you take a look at this up here, this is where Israel have bases in this country in Azerbaijan. It's Azerbaijan right here. And this is Iran, the biggest enemy Israel has in the world. Okay? So Israel needs a ally over here. They need an ally. So when the time comes that Israel needs to attack these people right here, they can attack these people from here. Israel has warplanes right here. They have all kinds of military equipment over here in this country. And now we have the UAE right here. So these people are surrounded from the north and the south. So if Iran thought that Israel was surrounded from Lebanon and Gaza, Hezbollah and Hamas, well, Israel has these people the same way, because Israel is going to get some weapons to this country and some bases. You can bet on it. You can bet on it. So that's why Iran was so angry when Israel made peace with these countries, with this strong country, not like Lebanon, not like Gaza. These are strong countries. These are big countries compared to Lebanon and Gaza. Okay, so you can see why Israel is an ally of Azerbaijan. Let's go back over there. Let's read. So Israel in the video is video shows Azerbaijan using Israeli LoRa missile in a conflict with Armenia. In the video, a truck is seen approaching a bridge on the Armenian side. I don't know if you can see it. Just in the video, a truck is seen approaching a bridge on the Armenian side of the conflict zone when a missile suddenly strikes and levels the bridge. Azerbaijan is a known close ally of Israel, supplies Israel with about 40% of its oil needs, and is a long-time customer of an assortment of Israeli defense companies buying drones, missiles, and other advanced weapon systems. In 1916, Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev revealed that his country has signed a $5 billion worth of long-term contract over the years to buy weapons and security equipment from Israel. Now you can see why the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, and Bahrain are getting closer to Israel. Israel is one of the main countries in the world in military technology. Israel even sells weapons to the United States. In these days, Israel sold Iron Dome systems to the United States in the Middle East, to the troops in the Middle East that the United States has. So even the United States buys equipment from Israel. India buys equipment from Israel. Many South American countries buy equipment from Israel, and maybe many other countries buy it from them. But we don't know. No, we don't know. This is top secret. It is top secret. Let's keep going right here. Azerbaijan and Armenia, neighboring countries and former Soviet republics, have long been at odds over Azerbaijan breakaway region of Nagorno-Karabakh. I'm going to show you where that is. The region is part of Azerbaijan, but is run by its mostly ethnic Armenian inhabitants. Armenia is a Christian country or nation, and Azerbaijan is a Muslim country. Okay, so it's hard to see people die fighting between Muslims and Christians. It's hard because I'm a Christian, and we don't want to see anybody die. We don't want to see. The latest fighting began around the Tavush region in northeast Armenia, some 300 kilometers from the breakaway enclave. 11 civilians have been reported killed and at least 67 wounded in the fighting. The Azeri prosecutor's office said 20 civilians have so far been killed. Casualties among its military forces. The fighting is more seriously than at any time since the war in the 1990s, in which 30,000 people were killed. Well, I don't think it's more serious than that. I don't think they're going to get to that. I think they're going to broker a ceasefire real soon. People were killed, and it has deepened concern about stability in the South Caucasus, a region where pipelines carry Azeri oil and gas to world markets. Okay, so Azerbaijan is a big oil producer. Dora is a quasi-ballistic missile made by the Israeli aerospace. Okay. Dora is a theater quasi-ballistic missile made by the Israeli aerospace industry. It can be launched from a ship or by land. It has an operational range of 400 kilometers, 250 miles, and it is accurate to within 10 miles, hitting its target within 10 minutes after launch. I'm gonna show you how accurate it is. Azerbaijan was the first and only confirmed country to which Israel delivered LoRa missile through an arms deal which took place back in 2018. Okay. I'm going to show you how this works. Video shared from the crashes between Armenia and Azeri forces in the Nagorno. What's this? In the Nagorno-Karabakh region, show our Azerbaijan forces using an Israeli LoRa missile to shell a bridge in Armenia, according to Channel 12. Azerbaijan is currently fighting ethnic Armenian forces in the mountainous enclave after fighting broke on a Sunday between the two sides. The enclave is not recognized internationally as independent and has been the subject of conflict since 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union. Okay. Let's see what it is. The clown. Okay, so let's show how accurate this missile is. Israel's technology. Israel's technology, the best in the world, alongside the United States. Take a look at that. Look what it hits. You saw that? How small that was? I will say small target. That is amazing. Israel is just amazing. Well, it is in the best interest of this country to negotiate with Israel. So you saw that. Now Lebanon and even Syria, they both want to talk to Israel. Both of those countries. Let's show you the Lebanese first.
Israel and Lebanon have agreed to hold direct negotiations about the two nations' maritime borders. Now, this is a rare development. That's because Lebanon and Israel are still formally at war. But with the United States as the mediator here, direct negotiations are set to be held in mid-October, and they'll be monitored by the UN on the blue line separating Lebanon and Israel. And with us for more on this story, we have our correspondent, Yotam Confino, joining us. So, Yotam, Lebanon and Israel have been at odds for decades over the maritime border separating them. What is the issue here, and how significant is this development?
I would call this development historic, and I would do that for a number of reasons. First of all, Lebanon and Israel are technically still at war, and now they're about to enter into negotiations, direct political negotiations, for the first time in 30 years. That is major. And of course, every time you talk about borders and sovereignty, the stakes are extremely high. And in this particular case, it's not land borders, but maritime borders. And it is a triangular area that they are in conflict over. And it basically looks like this. It goes from mainland and then a triangular area out into the Mediterranean Sea. And there's a lot at stake here because, of course, both nations know that there is gas and oil in the Mediterranean Sea. So this is basically the essence of the conflict.
Interesting. So, what exactly will they gain from finally agreeing on the borders?
Well, first of all, they will have sovereignty. Each will have their own parts of the Mediterranean in front of their nations. And also they will get to actually exploit these massive gas fields and oil fields, and especially Lebanon, because Israel also already has several gas fields that bring in billions of dollars every year. Lebanon is not so lucky yet. They might be whenever they actually agree on these borders. So in this particular area, economically, there's a lot to gain for both states.
Now, Lebanon is struggling financially, of course, especially after the mass explosions that shook Beirut. Could this have anything to do with today's breakthrough?
Definitely. Like you said, Lebanon is basically on the brink of a financial collapse. And according to Israeli reports, Israeli officials have said that this particular explosion, the explosions that happened in Beirut that destroyed the country even more than it was to begin with, had some kind of an influence in the willingness of the Lebanese government to engage in negotiations with Israel because of the financial struggling. Again, this could bring in billions of dollars for them, and it's basically free money. They just need to go out and to drill for oil and gas, and this could bring them in a lot of money, of course.
Right. Now, this, of course, all comes after Prime Minister Netanyahu accused Hezbollah of hiding weapon facilities in civilian areas, something that Hezbollah is denying. But what role does Hezbollah play in these border negotiations with Israel? And could Netanyahu's latest revelations actually change how Hezbollah is viewed within Lebanon?
Look, Lebanon and Israel have been in negotiations, diplomatic negotiations over these maritime borders for a couple of years now. And up until a year ago, there was not any breakthrough and nothing was really happening. And mainly because Hezbollah was really putting their foot on the brake, and they were not happy with it. Of course, Hezbollah is the enemy of Israel. But now, because of the situation, because Hezbollah is also suffering financially, and they also set to gain a lot of money from these gas and oil fields, it seems as if they're willing to allow the negotiations to go on. Everything that is going on in Lebanon, Hezbollah has a say in. And with regards to Netanyahu's accusations, There's no doubt that he's doing everything he can to persuade the Lebanese people that Hezbollah is the enemy of the people. And every time he brings forward these proofs that he basically tries to push the Lebanese people to go against Hezbollah.
Right. Right, because Hezbollah is the enemy of the people of Lebanon. They are the enemy of the people of Lebanon. Okay? So I want to move on because let me show you this. This is from a satellite from Israel. Take a look at this. Israel knows. Israel has 16 satellites in space. They know where these people keep their arms, everything they have. Israel knows where these people have it. Hezbollah. So when Israel gets to attack them, it is going to be sad because many innocent people will die. That's why the Lebanese government wants to negotiate with Israel, because they know that day is coming. They know it. Okay, so I want to change the subject now to Russia, and the empire, Rome. Because I don't know if you knew, but Russia, even the Russians came from Rome. Even the Russians came from Rome. And I got the video here to show it to you, the evidence. So let's watch it.
Russia is the largest country on Earth, spanning an incredible 17 million square kilometers. But if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering how it got so big, and how it has become such a powerful political and social entity in our modern world. It not only takes the title of largest and most popular country and city in Europe, but also stretches far beyond Europe, across the Ural mountain range into Asia, taking up the largest
I want to show you something.
Mountain range into Asia.
You see this right here? This is supposed to be Europe. So Moscow and Moscow, the capital of Russia, is part of Rome, Europe. Okay, that is why Hitler wanted to invade and get to. He didn't get to Moscow, but he tried. He tried because he knew, and even the Europeans know that is their land. But they're not going to go against Russia, because they know Russia is even if the Russia is almost a superpower. They lost their status as a superpower in 1991, but they are still a pretty strong country. Maybe not the best economy in the world. They're like 6 or 7. But even Germany has a bigger economy than the Russia. Germany. So you can see that Germany, that is for me the real Roman Empire. That is going to be the force in the future. Germany, it has had the 2 biggest wars in history. This people has brought to the world the 2 biggest wars in history, and they are still one of the top economies in the world. Number 4 after Japan, and I'm going to show it to you. The United States is number 1, China number 2, Japan number 3, and Germany number 4. And I think Russia is number 5. But if you compare the size of those 2 countries, Russia is the biggest country in the world. The biggest country in the world. It's not as populated as other countries, as the United States or even Europe, but it has the population of Russia is bigger than the population of Germany. Let's keep watching.
Taking up the largest portion of the continent. Principal history of Eastern Europe begins with a people the Greek writers called Slavs. The first Russian state was formed when a group of Eastern Slavs, later known as the Rus, elected a Viking chieftain to be their prince in 882, in the area between the Volga and Dnieper river basins. The state was soon expanded into the lands once held by the nomadic steppe peoples from Asia. The most important city they
So
captured
Russia
was
started
Kiev,
in
which is why historians
1862,
refer to this
from
part of Russia's history as
1862
the
to
Kievan
1882.
Rus. The Rus spoke a language called Proto-Eastern Slavic, which would slowly evolve into Russian and Ukrainian. The medieval Rus state adopted Christianity in 988, when Vladimir I introduced the religion from the Orthodox Christian Byzantine Empire. This is also why the Russians use the Cyrillic rather than the Latin alphabet, common in most Catholic nations. The Rus state slowly fragmented into competing princedoms, largely aided by the death of Yaroslav the Wise in the 11th century. The Rus were often at war with the nomadic tribes we will just call for simplicity's sake steppe peoples. These steppe peoples are integral to much of the history of Asia, and you'll see various factions of them popping up all over the place. Most steppe peoples originate from the Eurasian steppes, go figure, and were very good at horse riding and archery, such as the Volga Bulgars, Khazars, and Kipchaks. So with that out of the way, we can talk about the Mongols, who the Rus called Tartars. Under Genghis and Batu Khan, they invaded all the way into western Kievan Rus and established a state called the Golden Horde, with the Rus princedoms as their vassals. The Mongol Empire quickly fractured into smaller khanates, allowing for the growth of more powerful states such as Poland, Lithuania, and the Grand Duchy of Moscow. By 1480, both states absorbed much of the Golden Horde, becoming more rivals with each other than with the Tartars. By 1547, Moscow had become a regional power, with Ivan the Terrible being crowned the first Tsar, the Russian word for Caesar. After all, they did see themselves as the spiritual successors of the Romans, and the last remnant of Orthodox Christianity. Debatable. Ivan also renamed the state Russia, after the Rus who inhabited it. In 1580, Russia conquered the Khanate of Sibir, marking the first time Russia had expanded east of the Ural Mountains into Asia. The Russians renamed the mysterious new land Siberia after the Khanate it conquered. And do you think they stopped there? Well, spoiler alert, no. In 1601, the Russians faced a succession crisis as the beginning of the time of troubles. The country was in anarchy and in danger of being absorbed by Poland. Up to 1 in 3 of the population died either due to war, famine, or plague. By 1613, the Russians elected Mikhail Romanov as the new Tsar, establishing the Romanov dynasty for the rest of the country's history. Michael ended the wars and began the slow process of rebuilding the fragmented country. From this point until the 19th century, Russia's economy was propped up by serfdom, effectively protecting Russia's rich and powerful by turning all the peasants into hereditary slaves. Yeah, history sucks sometimes. By 1667, Russia had become powerful enough to win the Russo-Polish War with the help of the subjugated steppe peoples called Cossacks. They expanded their territory into southeastern part of Poland. The Poles and the Russians had informally nicknamed the area Ukraina, derived from an old Slavic word for borderland. Get it? Because it was the border between Russia, Poland, and the Cossacks? Very creative. Anyway, one of Russia's most famous Tsars was Peter the Great. Peter was a reformer. He modernized the army, built the empire's first navy, traveled west and brought back ideas and technology of the Enlightenment, and also fashionable French clothing. He also expanded Russia's influence in the Black and Baltic Seas. The guy was basically in love with the West. After capturing a Baltic seaport from the Swedish Empire in the Great Northern War, Peter built a new city and founded it as the country's new capital, St. Petersburg. Russia also fought in the 7 Years' War, vying for power with their European neighbors. Another formidable Russian ruler was Catherine the Great, who was, well, not really Russian at all. She was born in Germany, and she killed her husband and seized the throne for herself. Her reign was one of reform and domination over the Crimean Khanate, as well as openly embracing the Enlightenment. In the mid-18th century, the Polish...
You can see that a German woman ruled in Russia. Take a look at that.
Government collapsed due to a parliamentary limbo, and the surrounding Austria, Prussia, and Russia split the country in 3 during the Polish partitions, effectively wiping the country off the map for the next century. Just in time for the Napoleonic Wars. Russia, just like the other European monarchies of the time, feared the repercussions of the French Revolution and joined the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th coalitions against Napoleon, but they usually lost pretty badly. The French army captured the abandoned Moscow in 1812, however the Russians would not surrender, preferring to burn the fields that the French hoped to live off. After waiting a few months, Napoleon retreated from Russia due to lack of supplies before conceding a Russian surrender, and when the snow set in and killed most of the French army, the tide was turned in Russia's favor. Russia's territorial gains had become so ambitious that it triggered a war with France and England, who helped the Ottomans in the Crimean War. In 1861, Russia abolished serfdom in an event now known as the Emancipation. Also, in the period between Napoleon and the Emancipation, it is worthwhile to note that Russia expanded her territory into Turkestan, China, the Southern Caucasus, Finland, and Russian America. And were it not for the Crimean War, they almost certainly would have won the entire Black Sea. They really loved land. In 1894, Tsar Nicholas II and the mystic Rasputin, who people thought secretly controlled him, became the last emperor of Russia. There were revolts against the political system for many decades, and the monarchy was slowly losing its power. As an ally of Serbia, Russia aimed to protect the Baltic Slavs from the Austro-Hungarian invasion during World War I.
You see all these countries in the Balkan states, Serbia, Croatia, um, Kosovo, when it was by this time, all these countries right here were their language was, and it still is, Russian language. If you look it up and you see the letters, you can see that when in Google you can look it up, and you will see that it says Serbian language or Croatian language, but it is Russian language, because that this is the part where the Russians came from. These countries, almost all of them speak Russian, and Ukraine as well.
1. The chaos and famine of the war led to the two Russian revolutions. The first deposed the Tsar and set up a provincial government, highly influenced by the Soviets. The Soviets were basically workers' unions inspired by Marxism. Vladimir Lenin's Bolshevik Party came to power in the Soviets and seized power in the October Revolution, creating the RS.
When the Soviet Union.
FSR, and the Russian Civil War between the Reds and the Whites. The Civil War led to the breakaway of Poland, the Baltic states, and Finland. In 1922, the RSFSR was renamed the USSR.
United Soviet Socialist Republic. That's the meaning of USSR.
Much catchier name. After the death of Lenin, Russia's most famous communist-era dictator came to power, Joseph Stalin. Born in the old Russian Empire, now modern-day Georgia, Stalin was an aggressive expansionist, go figure. He had aims of spreading communism throughout the world. He also resented Russia's territorial losses during the Civil War. He killed and exiled millions of people he deemed anti-revolutionary. With failed diplomacy with the Western European nations, Stalin entered into the non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany, hoping to regain much of the land lost during the First World War in Poland and the Baltic Sea. On the 1st and 17th of September, Germany and Russia invaded and divided Poland in two, beginning the Second World War. Originally in an uneasy alliance with Hitler, the tide of war turned with Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union. The invasion killed more troops than any other theater of battle, and the German armies came just 24 kilometers from Moscow. However, the winter blizzard set in, turning the battle in the Soviets' favor. After the defeat of Nazi Germany, Stalin held on to the Soviet-occupied territories, enveloping them into the USSR or creating communist puppet states. The Western Allies treated the Soviet bloc with suspicion, in which the Soviets developed nuclear weapons and became one of the most powerful nations in history. The USSR was the first nation to put a man in space during the American-Soviet space race. After decades of poverty and political unrest, as well as involvement in numerous proxy wars with the United States, the USSR finally collapsed under the weight of the one-party communist state. The Russian Federation was formed as a newly democratic republic. The two most important Eastern Bloc states, Poland and East Germany, broke away from Russian control, and the eastern parts of Russia also broke away to form two new countries, Belarus, or White Russia, and Ukraine. The rise of Vladimir Putin, a former KGB officer, into the prime ministry and presidency of Russia brought with it renewed foreign policy. Putin became involved in the Syrian civil war, the East Russian separatism movements in Ukraine, and the politics of many Eastern European countries. Modern-day Russia's future is uncertain, as is the motives of its leader. However, the nation is in a state of peace, will be hosting the Football World Cup in 2018, and is emerging once again as a world superpower.
You saw that. Now let's go over here. You can see that Hitler wanted his country back. Because this is Europe. It's not Russia. It is Europe. I'm going to show you why. When you go to Google, and you write in Google Asia and Europe maps. This is what you get. This is what you get. You can see that this is all Europe. The same thing that this guy showed in the video. Not only this one, I got another one. I have another one. This one. There it is. You can see Europe. If you look at Europe, it's all over here. Take a look at this. Israel is right here. They say that the enemies of Israel in Ezekiel 38 will come from the north. And who's in the north? Europe. Even when Russia right now is governing almost all of this right here, because Ukraine is right here. If you go straight up, it is Turkey, and then it's Ukraine, and then it's Russia. Russia is governing all this part right here. But this is supposed to be Europe, all of this. Let's go back to the other picture so you can see. Where's Israel here? Israel is right here. Go up, what do you get? Europe. I'm positive. That is why I say, even when talking about Russia, and knowing that Russia is a country, that will try to get. See, this is what is Russia today. Go up right here today, you will get Ukraine, and after Ukraine, you get to Moscow. Out of the picture, you see that all of this from here, here, let's say it is from here to here. It is Europe. Okay? From here to here, it is Europe. That is something that I think that even if I think that Russia will be there, because we have 4 countries that we don't know who those countries are: Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, and Togarmah. I think one of those countries is definitely Turkey. It's definitely Turkey. I think that Magog is Russia. But the other 2 countries are from Germany. Okay? So let's keep talking about the great empire, right? Rome, and the lies and the deceptions against Israel and the Arabs. This was in the First World War. The McMahon and Hussein correspondence from 1915 to 1916. The McMahon-Hussein correspondence, or the Hussein-McMahon correspondence, was an exchange of letters July 14, 1915 to January 30, 1916, during World War I between the Sharif of Mecca, Hussein bin Ali, and Sir Henry McMahon, British High Commissioner in Egypt, concerning the political status of land. Let me give it a quick close. Concerning the political status of the land under the Ottoman Empire. Okay, that was in the war against the Ottoman Empire. The British and the French asked for the help of the Arabs so they can beat the Ottoman Empire. Okay, now the Arab side was already planning a large revolt against the Ottoman Empire. However, the British further encouraged the Arabs to revolt under their direction and command with promises of independence and territory. And their own territory. Okay, and their own territory. Okay. So let's go over here. Hussein specified the area he wishes to include in the Sharifain Arab government. After Arab independence, Hussein proposed land included the Arabian Peninsula, other than Aden, Palestine, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. In his response to Hussein's letter, McMahon agreed to post-war Arab. Those people are the biggest liars in the world. This is Europeans. Independence on behalf of the British government, limited only by the constraints and reservations of non-Arab territories, or related to what British was not at liberty to act without the detriment to the interests of her ally France. The district of Messine and Alexandretta and portions of Syria lying to the west of the district of Damascus, Homs, Hama, and Aleppo, where the territory is not assessed as Arab by the British, as the exact meaning couldn't be derived from this, similar to the later Balfour Declaration. Arab, see, there were promising things to the Arabs and promising things to the Jewish people, to the Zionists, at the same time. Okay, a spokesman has asserted since the time of the correspondence that Palestine was included in the proposed Arab Peninsula. Okay, Sharif Hussein saw World War I as an opportunity to liberate Arab lands from the Turks. The Arabs felt that the Turks had abandoned their pluralistic and pan-Islamic policies to pursue a secure Turkish nationalism. Thus, the Great Arab Revolt was launched on June 5, 1915. The Arabs trusted the word of British official, big mistake that they made, big mistake. And if they're trusting them today, they're making another big mistake. British officials that they would get their own unified independent state in 1918. Damascus was released from Ottoman rule at the end of the war. Arab forces had taken control of most of the Arabian Peninsula, southern Syria, and all of the modern Jordan. Yet, in the aftermath of the war, Britain walked out on the promise of unified independent Arab states. Further reading: British World War II promise to the Arab Palestinian facts. Okay, let's go to the Balfour Declaration. That is all I'm going to read you, because there's a lot to read, and I'm going to show you a couple more things, but this is pretty long, and I want to read it out to you so you can understand. Okay. The Balfour Declaration was a short letter by Arthur Balfour to arguably one of the more influential Jewish families, the Rothschild. It was assumed that this letter gave the British government support to the creation of a Jewish homeland. Okay, let's go over here. The majestic government viewed with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavor to facilitate the achievement of this object. It being clearly understood that nothing should be done which may prejudice civil and religious right of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the right and political status enjoyable by the Jewish in any other country. Okay, the British indeed were very busy making promises toward the end of World War I. While they promised the Arabs their own independent state, they also made a similar but conflicting promise to the Zionist community. The Zionists were interested in the creation of a Jewish ethnic state. In the claims that the British made this promise in order to appeal to Woodrow Wilson and well as the Russians. Okay, why was that? The British did not know quite what to make of President Woodrow Wilson and his conviction before America's entrance into the war, that the way to end hostilities was for both sides to accept peace without victory. Two of Wilson's closest advisors, Louis Brandeis and Felix Frankfurter, were avid Zionists. How better to shore up an uncertain ally than by endorsing Zionist aims? The British adopt similar thinking when it came to the Russians, who were in the midst of their revolution. Several of the most prominent revolutionaries, including Leon Trotsky, were of Jewish descent. Why not see if they could be persuaded to keep Russia in the war by appealing to their latent Jewishness and giving them another reason to continue the fight? This includes not only those already mentioned, but also British desire to attract Jewish financial resources. You see, the Jewish people were not many as the Arabs, but they had money, like they have today. The British believed that expressing support would appeal to Jews in Germany, America, and Russia, and trustly would help the war efforts. Even David Lloyd George, who was the prime minister at the time the Balfour Declaration was issued, admitted later in 1937 that the declaration was made for propagandist reasons. You see, the idea was, and this was the interpretation put upon it at the time, that the Jewish state was not to be set up immediately by the peace treaty without referring to the wishes of the majority of the inhabitants. On the other hand, it was contemplated that when the time arrived for the according representative institutions to Palestine, if the Jewish had meanwhile responded to the opportunity afforded them by the idea of a national home and had become a definite majority of the inhabitants, then Palestine would be thus become a Jewish commonwealth. They didn't want to give that land to the Jewish people. While the Arab prominent tolerance for the Jewish at the time, they were opposed to the idea of turning Palestine into Jewish ethno state. The Sharif of Mecca even called on the Arabs to welcome the Jewish as brethren and cooperate with them for the common welfare. What many people in the West don't understand today is that before World War I, relations between the Arabic and Jewish population in the Middle East were fairly tolerant. Much of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict today is a direct result of the territorial division made in the aftermath of World War I and World War II. Okay. However, Israel as a Jewish state was not established in the aftermath of World War I. As the Balfour Declaration promised, Israel was not established until 1948. So the Zionist community was disappointed. Later, David Lloyd George confirmed their disappointment when he admitted that the British promise were a fraud from the beginning, propaganda designed to gain the interest of the Jewish community in the war. So once again, I tell you, this nation, this Roman Empire, is the worst of the worst. The Antichrist is going to come from that nation. It is going to come from that nation. Okay? So it is not only the Germans who are bad in that country. We have seen, I have shown you before, all of these countries, at least the strongest ones, have been dictatorships. They have occupied their own neighbors, and even more of other countries. The British Empire, the French Empire, the Napoleonic Empire, the Nazis, the Right Empire, Nazis Empire, the Roman Empire. These people are bad people. This nation is a bad nation. I don't know how can many people trust and support these people the way they do. I really don't understand. I really don't understand. This is what was supposed to be. What the Arabs were going to get from here to here. Okay? Let's keep moving. This is what they didn't get. This is what the British and the French divided the land for. They took Russia, took the north part. The French took this side, all the Damascus and all these countries, part of Iraq, and part of Turkey. The British took Jerusalem, Jordan, all of this, even part of the Arab nation. This is what they did, and after that, they did this. This is what they did. What we can see today. Okay, this is British Palestine. This is what they did. French Beirut, Lebanon. The French governed Lebanon, and the British governed Palestine till the Israelis came, and this was from 1932. League of Nations mandate in 1920. This is when they created Iraq, British Jordan, French Syria. Then in 1948, Israel was created. This is the Arab Peninsula where the gas oil is going to go through now. And some will go through pipelines under the ground. Okay? So that is why these treaties are being created. Because Israel is a strategic partner in this region. It is real strategic, militarily, technologically, and even in the land where they are ubicated. This is the Mediterranean Sea. If you want to go directly to the Mediterranean Sea, these countries right here, these Arab countries, the easy pathway is Israel, through Jordan and Israel, or to the Arabian Peninsula. Okay. Let's keep moving. This is Arthur Balfour. This guy was Prime Minister of the British Empire. He held many different offices in his country. Okay, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So this is the one who made the pact with the science. This liar. Okay, we're gonna see how many Arabs are in this the different countries. We got right here, Iraq dominant ethnic group are the Mesopotamian Arabs, who account for more than 3/4 of the population, according to the CIA World Factbook, citing at 1987. Iraqi government estimates the population of Iraq is formed of 70% Arab, followed by 25% Kurds. Let's keep going. This is the Syrians. Okay, identity besides religious identities, the Syrian people are split among three identities: the Arab, Syrian, and Syria identities. Many Muslims and some Arabic-speaking Christians describe themselves as Arab, while many are Aramaic-speaking Aramaic-speaking Christians and some Muslims prefer to describe themselves as Syriac or Arameans. Let's keep going. Okay, Jordan. Right here, Jordanian Arab are the cities of the Jordan who share a common Levantine Semitic. This is for the Levant. Okay, ancestry. Some 98% of Jordanian are Arabs, while the remaining 2% and other ethnic minorities, around 2.9 million, were non-citizens. A figure include refugees, legal and illegal immigrants. Okay, so you can see that all of these countries are, the majority is Arab, even this one. Yes, it is an Arab country, Lebanon. As it said right here that it is not, regardless of region or religion, sect are not Arab. Recent studies show that the majority of Lebanese per person's genetic makeup today is shared with that of Phoenicians and Canaanite people, the ancestors of the Lebanese people. But here it says, yes, it is an Arab country for a very simple reason. It is in the heart of the Arab world. In addition to the fact that the main language spoken in Lebanon is Arabic, it is true that many Lebanese deny they are Arabs, especially Maronite Christians, because they believe that Arabism is tied to Islam. Okay, this is the guy who made the pact with the Arabs. Henry McMahon, British diplomat. This was a diplomat and another liar. They're all liars. These people are all liars. Okay, so let me show you this, because many people say that the treaty between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain is because the UAE wants the sales of American weapons and even the F-35. Well, I got news for you. Congress has to approve that. And right here, you can see that the Democrats hate Donald Trump. They will not let that bill pass. They will not let it. And they're saying that if the UAE gets the F-35, they're going to get it from 6 to 8 years from now. Okay? From 6 to 8 years. That's a long way. From here to when these people get the planes. Israel is gonna have like 200 to 300 F-35, and maybe a new the 6th generation fighter that the United States made. Okay, so bipartisan bill would give Israel a veto on Middle East arms sales. See that Israel will veto any sales to the Arab countries, because Israel, even they have peace with them, they cannot trust anyone in the Middle East, because after they get rid of Iran, if they do get rid of them, you don't know what is going to happen. You know, Israel's got to keep their edge. And they have their edge, you know. Even if the UAE gets the planes, they're not going to get many of them. Israel is gonna have their edge over them, because Israel have their own technology, you know. Israel has many drones. Even the best drones in the world, some of the best drones in the world, Israel has, and they have their own tanks. They have their own satellites. They have 16 satellites in space. Israel is just, it's a superpower in the Middle East. It is a superpower. But still, they don't want anybody to get the plane. If Israel don't want anybody in the Middle East to get the plane, they won't get it. They won't get it. And I know Donald Trump don't want to give those planes to these people. Donald Trump is just doing this because he wanted to get this peace, and at the same time, it is not because of that. That was it could have been a factor. It could have been a factor, but that this Arab states know that having peace with Israel isn't in their best interest. They know it. They know it. They know that being with Israel is better than to be with the Palestinians, the so-called Palestinians. They hate Israel. That they don't want no peace with Israel. They just don't want peace with Israel, Palestinians. So these countries are just tired of the Palestinians. They're just tired. What else? Talking about the Congress. Even a Republican Senate will not pass it. They will not. Okay, this is the satellite. Israel Defense Forces revealed additional intelligence on Hezbollah sites in Beirut. Okay, so I have this is what I wanted to show you. The fourth economy in the world, Germany. Germany today is smaller than it was in the Second World War. They were smaller than in the First World War, and today they're smaller than in the Second World War. See, and they are still the top country in the European Union or Europe, the top economy, after just the United States, China, and Japan. See, these are the letters. This is the Russia, the Russia, dear Lord Russia. This is the what's the name of this guy? The Balfour letter to the Russia, telling him that they were gonna get the land of Israel. And I got the letter this is the land that they were gonna give us. It was I thought it was all of this because it was smart, but it is only this. Because it says right here, British mandate 1920 approximately. See, this was British mandate. Zionist organization proposal to the Paris Conference in 1990. So Israel was supposed to get this. I want to show you something. Once again. Show you with the other letter. This is the letter from Henry McMahon to the mission report. This is the one telling them that they were not going to get the Palestinian land. It was going to be divided between the Jewish people and the Palestinians. This was like an apology. This is the letter. Okay. Subject to the modification, Great Britain is prepared to recognize and support the independence of the Arab and other region within the limits demanded by the Sheriff of Mecca. Okay, so you see that this guy, he was the yes. Saudi Arabia. See? So let's go over here so I can show you something else. So this could be true. This could be true. This is what Israel is supposed to do. This is what Israel is supposed to do. Yeah. Here. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit? Okay. In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying unto thee, to thy seed, to your people, Abraham, to your people, I'm going to give all of this land right here. I'm going to give to your people, Abraham, to your seed. Have I given this land from the river of Egypt? Here's the river of Egypt. The river of Egypt. Okay? Okay? Let me do something. Okay, so it's from the river of Egypt. From the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river of Euphrates. Okay, so it could be a little bit smaller. Let's say it is over here. Let's say it is over here. But it is still a big piece of land. So I guess that all of this land, or maybe all of this, because when he says the great river of Euphrates has to start from one side to the other. It cannot be the same thing from here, because if it wasn't like this, then it would have gone all the way over here. But when he doesn't say the great river of Egypt, he doesn't say the great river of Egypt, and the river of Egypt is bigger than the river of Euphrates. It is the biggest river in the world. So when he says the great river of Euphrates, he's talking about this. That is Israel. That is what Israel is supposed to do. So, it's just my opinion. Maybe other people have the same opinion of it. What can I say? Abraham, the Abraham Accord. Abraham. So this is all prophetic. The times of the world are ending. Okay? So we can understand. We need to understand that God is at the door, not knocking at the door. Okay? So if God is knocking at the door, you gotta be trying to at least be closer. At least try to get closer. Try to not sin. Try to get away from bad people. Try to elect good people in government, so the laws will not change against God, like the same-sex marriage, like the abortion laws, like many other laws, like the laws that a man can enter a woman's bathroom because he feels that he's a woman. The laws that want to show a little children, a little kid that doesn't understand because he's a kid, a boy, that he's a boy. They want to show this boy that he can pick whatever he wants to do, be a woman or be a man. When it is a boy, and a girl is a girl. If you want to do whatever you want to do with your life, when you're a big person, when you're big, when you're 18, 20, 21, you can do whatever you want. But when you're small, don't take that law from the hands of the parents. Do not do that. That is why I encourage you to vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a great man. He's not a Christian. He's like me. He's a believer. And I can trust in Donald Trump even more than I can trust in some Christian people or so-called Christian people. Because he has shown it already. Sorry. He has shown it. It says there's a saying in the Bible. By their habits, you will know. By their habits, you will know. So if you see a person, you see how this person is acting. You can see a homosexual, a gay person, and you will know it's a gay person, or a homosexual, or a lesbian. You will know it because that person is showing it to you. A real man, you will know who is a real man. There are some that are just in the closet; they don't want anybody to know. So at some point, if you have a person, a known person, that you go out with him and you just have go to drink or do anything that you do with your friends, because I don't do it, but anyone else, there will come a time that person will let you know that he's gay. Okay, that's all I have. I want you all to trying to, okay? So I'm trying to. I'm not a historian. I'm not a Christian. Like I told you before, I'm learning as I'm speaking to you. I'm learning at the same time, and I like this. And I don't get a lot of views. I don't have a lot of subscribers. I get more views when I talk about the anti-war. but I like this. I love Israel. I love the United States. I love to talk about this because these are our end times. And people need to know what is happening. People need to know. Because there are a lot of people who are being lied. Okay? This thing that they're talking about, the Donald Trump didn't condemn the white supremacists. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He has done it many times. And there are the videos showing it, clips showing it. But the Joe Biden didn't want to condemn Antifa or Black Lives Matters. And those are the people who are destroying their cities, their Democrat cities. I don't see no white people, white power or how do they call these people? White supremacists. I don't see these people destroying cities or doing things, killing people, killing cops. I don't see these people doing that. If you have seen some of them lately, show them to me. So I don't see them. The only people that I see destroying the cities and destroying the United States and killing people and hurting people and burning buildings down and small businesses and destroying cars in the streets are Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And there are more white people in this Black Lives Matters than black people. And they want to force people to say Black Lives Matters. Because I was watching a video the other day that they were stopping people on the street telling them, hey, say Black Lives Matters. And if they don't say it, they beat them up. It is crazy, man. I'm telling you. This is getting crazy. So that's all I have. This video has been real long, but this is the last one. Okay, I'm going back to Deontay Wilder. I want to talk about John Jones and the fight against this guy Israel, whatever his last name is. John Jones is just going to destroy this guy, and I'm going to tell you why in my next videos. Okay, so I'm going back to Deontay Wilder because I got a lot to talk about Deontay Wilder and the big cheater, Tyson Fury. That's the biggest cheater in history, in boxing history. The biggest cheater. Okay? So God bless Israel. God bless the United States of America. God bless you. Okay? Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to my channel, Boricua Science Nation. My name is Daniel Peña. Like, comment, and what was the other thing? And share. Okay. like, comment, and share. Okay, thanks a lot. And I'll see you later.